Hi, my name is Tomáš Přibyl, also known as Thales, and I'm currently working as a project lead on DayZ.
And can you give us just like the brief rundown of the latest thing that we've seen revealed here at the DayZ United event?
Okay. What we are preparing is a new expansion for the game, which is called DayZ Frostline. It's focused on survival on a new terrain named Sachal, which is a Far East representation of the world. Very authentic to the place and how it looks. Also a volcanic island where you will need to survive both harsh winter and specific environment. We really are excited for our players to try to survive on this new iteration of the whole experience.
The consensus I've heard about among like DayZ players that have been here that this is something that PC players won't be as highly affected because of the modding community, but this is huge for console players. Even with PC, when you look at the quality of what we just saw in the expansion and the map, like the weather effects, the design, the way that the snow falls, the way that it's set on the map, looks far above most of what we've seen, even out of the modding community. And I'm curious, was this a long time coming for DayZ? Was it something you guys thought about frequently, or was it something that came out of just like that desire from the community?
Somewhat of both, because first we of course like watching what the community is interested in, and we couldn't oversee the demand for a new map. Also, we are trying to get something more for our players, something that is more impactful for them, not only a new terrain. So we were thinking about what we can introduce, and that's where the whole idea for Frostline came from, that we wanted to combine those both things. We wanted to combine a new terrain which will be available for players across platforms, and on top of that also add a new experience, survival in a different environment that we can do. And we love our community. We are amazed what they can come up with and what they can release and play and have fun with. It's I would say more about the resources that we are really working on it, so we can definitely spend a lot of time and effort and resources on looking into details which community unfortunately might not have.
Some of the things that we saw introduced in the presentation was upgrades to the fishing system, frostbite affliction, hot springs. Were those like just things that you just always wanted to do, or did the winter theming of this new map kind of make those things just spring into action?
When we chose the winter environment, and it basically changed the priority of some stuff that we wanted to introduce in the game. And with survival being more complicated, where you need to focus more on getting food, taking care of your character in the game, it was a great opportunity to introduce improvements to stuff that we have planned, but it wasn't a critical thing if we chose otherwise. But with this, the fishing made sense, introducing new animals for hunting made sense, introducing the feature of frozen stuff that you also need to take care of. The snowing is the same as rain can make your clothes damp and soaked with water. The issues with temperature, and you need to be more careful about not getting sick from it. All those things suddenly made more sense and were a bigger priority for us to implement. While everything is basically specific for the map, we also are introducing general improvements to the whole game through a free update that will come at the same time with the expansion.
People that still want to play Charneris and Livonia will be able to access things like the fishing upgrade,
yes,
and the new clothes?
Yes, that's the plan. We don't want to forget players who are not interested in the expansion. We still want to support the game no matter what, so we are introducing also those general improvements into the base game, even though you don't buy the expansion. But the winter environment might be somewhat adjusted by our modding community. That will be available for them, but the map will be specific for the expansion.
It's been quite a few years at this point since Livonia itself came out. What made 2024 the time to introduce a whole new map and all these new mechanics in comparison to the development work that's been going into DayZ in the last few years?
With Livonia, we made some mistakes, definitely. We know that the reception of the DLC wasn't as great as we hoped for. but I think we are well aware of the reasons why it wasn't as good and what we could improve, and I believe we learned from it. And from that point, we also were more focusing on improving the game in general, introducing a lot of quality of life improvements, really focusing on supporting the game, fixing bugs, and making it a great experience. And so far, it really works well for us, and I also hope for the players, because from that point our numbers are basically growing, our community is great and strong, and with 10 years anniversary of the game being released into early access, we thought, yeah, like, we are comfortable to introduce something much bigger now that we can have as a first step for the next decade, because we plan to support the game for years to come.
You mentioned like these big mistakes with Livonia in particular. Are there any like particular ones that come to mind that you're trying to make sure, like with the experience you have now, you minimize and make sure that you don't make again as you approach the new map?
Yeah, we definitely want to really focus on the quality of the map, of the quality of the experience on the map, not necessarily the size of it. And also have somewhat clean planning of what we want to introduce through updates in following months and possibly years. So we want to deliver really good experience from the first time and then build on it, and don't introduce something that we are not completely sure that works. In that case, we still think or we think now that it's much better to cut that part and possibly add it through updates if it's really ready.
In the time since Livonia, how do you feel like the team has grown to the point where it's better at responding to feedback, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether it's suggestions that end up gaining hype and traction among the community?
I would say so, because several things happened with the team. The team in past few years grew, and it's really full of extremely passionate people who love the game and love the community and want to introduce only great stuff. We are of course looking into feedback a lot, but we also understand that we cannot add everything that both we and community would love to have in the game, and we are trying to really prioritize and focus on stuff that we see as the most impactful the time we have to introduce that stuff. That's also a reason why the latest updates might not have been as big as community hoped for, but it's also because we are introducing the whole new big thing. Still, we want to introduce some more stuff. That's, for example, the reason why we are adding ambient soundtrack to the game outside of any expansions. It's in a free update by the end of May. We are also counting to build on that in the future, as it's something that has a great impact on the atmosphere of the game. Like many of our players, including some developers, they usually played some background music to just increase the atmosphere in a wasteland or post-apocalyptic world that they are playing in. We wanted to make it easier for players that if they prefer this kind of experience, they will have a chance with the music in-game without need of any additional stuff. But of course, there will be still an option to turn off the soundtrack if you prefer just straight natural sounds and you enjoy that experience.
When you look at this new expansion, this is a paid expansion. And for console players, it sounds like it's going to be massive. How do you go about selling that same value to PC players that might think that they can just do something similar with mods?
That's something that we were thinking about, and there were a lot of discussions in our office about how to approach this, and we know that on PC players have much more options through modifications. Unfortunately, we cannot offer such options to our console players right now, even though in past few years I see quite positive trend with Microsoft and Sony, who are getting more and more open for modification on or adding mods to games on their platforms. So I hope that if not for DayZ, for the next generation of games, there will be an option for console players to also enjoy the variety of stuff that PC players have now. I think that it mostly depends, and again, I love our community. I don't want to tell anything negative about them, but I understand that we can add more resources and spend more time possibly on adding some details into the map. But again, it's not something that players are forced to buy. There will be no crazy mechanics locked behind the price. So if they just want to play Chernarus and adjust it for their own server, it will be still completely possible. Again, it's a choice that if they want to play on this map, they want to have the experience as we want to introduce it and present our game, or if they simply want to support us in what we are doing, there is an option to buy it.
With 10 years of DayZ behind you and this expansion coming up, like, I'm sure the sense of what you have to work on right now is clear. It's this expansion, this major update to the game. Hypothetically, what comes after the launch of this expansion and update? Like, how far does DayZ go past that?
When we were thinking what to introduce to our players, this expansion, the Frostline, was just one of many ideas that we were thinking about. And we still think that a lot of stuff on that list can be introduced following months or possibly years to players. So it basically all depends how successful we are in what we are doing. If players like what we are doing, we are ready to support the game for years to come, because we still have some ideas and still quite positive about few more years of having more and more stuff coming to DayZ.